Welcome into the WST Postgame reaction. My name is Connor Hrabchak. In a moment, I'm going to be joined by Michael Remis. And together, we're breaking down a 5-1 loss by the Winnipeg Jets to the Buffalo Sabres. They're 4-9 in their last 13 games. They've lost 5 of their last 6. And I'm going to use the adjective that Scott O'Neill used after the game. This was an embarrassing loss for the Winnipeg Jets. They looked slow. They got outskated. Scott O'Neill referenced after the game. They gave up 9 rush chances, 4 of which ended up in the back of their net. Sloppy penalties, not a lot of offense outside of the top line that was responsible for the 1 goal for the Winnipeg Jets in this game. But that was one of the worst performances, if not the worst, that we've seen from this Winnipeg Jets group this season. Coming off of 4 straight losses, they beat the Nashville Predators on Saturday. You were hoping they could follow that up and build off of that performance, but they seemed to take 1 step forward and 2 steps back, losing 5-1 to the Buffalo Sabres. Let's bring in the co-host of WST Daily with Andrew Patterson, Michael Remis. Michael, thanks for joining me tonight. What's kind of your initial reaction to that one? I feel like you could go a lot of ways.
Agree with the coach. It was embarrassing on Prime Monday Night Hockey, and they really got called out by the broadcast team throughout the game for the lack of depth scoring. They did get a goal from, of course, the top line, and most notably just the lack of speed. And you could say Friday's game was rough in terms of how badly they were outshot, but it was a pretty close game until the end. They were out of this one from
Early.
a couple minutes in, take a penalty, Buffalo scores, they score again and again, and it's 3-0 and the first period. So it was certainly a very rough performance. Nothing is going right for them, I guess, outside of that top line, but they're really missing. I mean, you could go a number of ways, but the performance not good enough, not really generating anything, and giving up goals, getting outshot, outplayed. It was not great, Connor.
Yeah, it was not great. And when you look under the hood at the analytics of this game, they tell the story that the Jets got outplayed. Like you said, Remo, shots 31-22 in favor of Buffalo, shot attempts 58-46 Buffalo, scoring chances 32-21. The Buffalo Sabres went 1 for 3 on their power plays, the Jets 0 for 2. And the Buffalo Sabres are one of those young teams that has a lot of talent, a lot of speed, a lot of skill. It's just a matter for them of putting it together consistently. And this was one of those games where they flashed. They played great. But from a Winnipeg Jets perspective, there needed to be some urgency in this game. And I think that's where Scott O'Neill also used the word disappointing in his post-game press conference. I think that's where the disappointment comes from, is you lose 4 straight, you win a game in Nashville against a Central Division opponent. Yes, they're the 32nd ranked team in the league, but the Jets felt good about themselves, snapped the losing streak. You were hoping that they could build on that and at least make this a close game. But that was just not the case. The Buffalo Sabres got up early and really never looked back in this one. There was a mini stretch in the second period where the Jets looked good, made it 3-1, where maybe you thought they could come back in this one. And then on the very next shift, the Buffalo Sabres make it 4-1. So the one, little ounce of hope that the Jets had in this game, they got taken away from them right away as Alex Tuch scored his 9th of the season, made it 4-1 Buffalo. And then early in the third period, Josh Norris scores his 2nd of the game. Nice to see him back for Buffalo as well. On a breakaway, that was just, Thomas Milic was in net at that point. Never had a chance for him. Really a breakaway from the neutral zone for Josh Norris on that one. So many defensive breakdowns. They looked slow against a young, fast team, and that seems to be a theme as of late, Remo. Let me get to some of these quotes from, you mentioned the game was on Prime. I thought they kind of nailed their analysis of this game and really their analysis of the Jets all season long. Thomas Hickey, who you guys had on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily today, said at the end of the first period, the game is too fast for the Jets right now. Have you heard that one this season? And Chris Pronger, Hall of Famer, said at the end of the first intermission, they're not getting any offense from the second, third, or fourth lines, and that's going to be a struggle to even make the playoffs if that continues. They're not getting offense from their bottom 9. The game looked too fast for them. And in this stretch where they've lost 5 of 6, Remo, that seems to be the theme.
Yeah, well, you look at the bottom 9 outside the top line. No one is really scoring there, and at times when they're losing, you think of the game against Anaheim, they got skated out of the building. You think about this game, and they're just making these D2D passes, and the Jets were not fast enough to get over there and block them. And you see them coming down the wing, skating past defensemen and shooting and scoring. It's been tough to watch. They had that good game against Nashville, but Nashville is one of the few teams that's below them at the standings at this point. So it's been a brutal stretch here, this road trip where you've lost to Washington, lost to Carolina, won against Nashville, and now lost in embarrassing fashion, as per the coach, to Buffalo. How's it going to end on Wednesday night in Montreal, where I think the Jets have struggled, and they've got a young and up-and-coming team with a lot of talent. I'm interested to see how they bounce back. They did have the closed-door players-only meeting after. Will that have any effect? Can anything be done? Mike McIntyre had the interview with Kevin Cheveldayoff in the Free Press today, and shout out to the Free Press for sending Mike on the road, who was able to be there after the game as the lone road reporter to get these quotes. And he said it comes from within. So hopefully they can, find whatever it is to get to the level they need to get to. But you have to wonder if this team, the way that it's constructed, is able to do that. I guess we'll have the answer at some point. But right now, this team out of a playoff spot, well behind the pace of last season. It was like last season was the dream, and you wake up and now you're almost in a nightmare.
Yeah. That's what it feels like for Jets fans, I think, right now in this stretch of 4-9 in their last 13 and lost 5 of their last 6. But yeah, here's the tweet from Mike McIntyre. Jets coach Scott Arniel just told me Adam Lowry initiated a closed-door players-only meeting tonight here in Buffalo. Arniel called his team's performance embarrassing, and he says he'll have lots more from the scene exclusively for the Free Press. Yeah, shout out to the Free Press for sending Mike and Ken on, alternating road trips there, and getting these quotes from the head coach at a time where Jets fans want to hear from the players, from the head coach after a loss of that magnitude. Remis, we'll get to our segments coming up in a little bit, but what do you think the way out for the Winnipeg Jets is when looking at, Koepke and Salamonson were the 2 healthy scratches in this game. You could put those guys back in the lineup, but in terms of what they're doing on the ice, what do you think needs to improve when looking at maybe some baby steps to play against a fast team like the Montreal Canadiens on Wednesday?
Yeah, Cole Koepke, he's got speed. Do you put him in for a guy like Pearson, or do you put in Salamonson for Luke Shen to that? Like, those are pretty marginal changes. Like, how much is that really going to affect? But what you've been doing hasn't been working, so you kind of have to try something. And I think the conversation about keeping the top line together or separating them and trying to get some more balance so you can maybe have 2 lines that can score. I guess the risk would be, instead of having 1 line that score, you can't find the right chemistry because you've never separated them, and then you have no lines that can score. But you don't know if you don't try it, and they keep banging their heads against the wall here the last couple games, and unless, Scheifele, Connor, Morrissey score 3 goals, they're probably not going to win because you're not scoring, and your defending's been rough, and you're getting poor goaltending. One off Milic off the back. Comrie, he led in 3 and got pulled. Arniel saying, wanted to give him a rest. He's going to be starting against Montreal, but I don't know if it's the first one or the third one he'd like to have back. But his numbers in terms of what goal saved above expected as a starter, they have not been great, Connor.
They have not.
But no, I don't want to sit here and blame, but it can't just be one or the other. It's everything. Nothing.
It is.
Nothing is going right. I mean, nothing is going right.
I hope people don't take your words as like, oh, Connor Hellebuyck will come back and then everything will be fine, because that's not what you're saying. That's not.
I think they would probably lose by a few less less
lose
goals.
3-1
like, if you don't
score 5-1.
Score 1 goal, like odds of you winning aren't great. And you look at this last stretch of games here, like they're not scoring. They're not scoring. They're not stopping the puck. You scored 1 goal against Carolina. You got 3 against Washington, but you gave up 4, and then you had 0 against Minnesota, and then you had 1 again tonight. So this stretch here hasn't been rough. They had the game against Nashville. They got 5. And that was the one game in the last stretch where you've had guys other than the top line scoring. So someone there, has to find a way to get something going. But they're not really generating anything. Maybe Cole Perfetti has had a number of chances, but he hasn't been able to finish.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of been the story with this Winnipeg Jets bottom 9. They're not generating much, and the guys that are, if they do generate chances, aren't scoring. And look, you look at the top line, and I even made the argument on WST Sunday Live that maybe the top line's performance is going a little bit underrated right now because they're doing it all, but it's being shadowed by, the rest of the forward core not really generating anything. It's not a recipe for success to have 9 guys not going. And look, I made this argument a few days ago as well. I'll make it again. You pay Kyle Connor $96 million, or you're going to. That contract kicks in next season. You gotta hope that he can drive a line away from Mark Scheifele right now, because in my opinion, this recipe of hoping that the top line can score 4 goals a night to win games is just not going to work. And you can't play the Nashville Predators every night. They helped you out a little bit. Second night of a back-to-back for both teams. The Jets beat the Preds to Nashville that night and beat them 5-2. Great. But you look at this bottom 9 right now, and look, there's a lot of issues with the Winnipeg Jets. We've brought up the team speed. We've brought up the secondary scoring. We've brought up the defensive coverage lapses. We've brought up the goaltending. It's not just one thing, but when you look at the secondary scoring right now, it just seems like they need a spark. They need something to change up front. And this was a game for me where I even thought the top line was okay at times, at least offensively. Defensively, they had some breakdowns for sure, as did everyone else. But the bottom 9 entirely just did not generate anything. And you look at some of the underlying numbers as well. I mean, with Jonathan Toews on the ice, regardless of who the line mates were on that line, in 14 and a half 5-on-5 minutes, the Jets got outchanced 12-2. With Cole Perfetti on the ice, so he's his line mate, 11-3. You look at the Lowry line. Let's go to Adam Lowry. The scoring chances were 6-0 for Buffalo with Adam Lowry on the ice for 11 and a half minutes. The fourth line actually was pretty even in terms of scoring chances, but I guess they played the least, so they have less margin for error in that sense. But you look at the middle 6 and you look at the 2 centers there, and being a combined, 18-2 were the scoring chances with Toews and Lowry on the ice combined in Buffalo's favor. You're not going to win hockey games like that. I don't care what the goaltending looks like. I don't care in general. That the bottom 9 for me, Remis, is of the list of concerns, the biggest. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. It's just been going on for too long where those players haven't been producing. And we've seen them in the past. Nemesnikov had a great year last year. Cole Perfetti as well. I think you're really seeing they're missing Nikolai Ehlers, from what he brought to that second line. I mean, he could drive a whole line himself. And you're missing Mason Appleton's speed for sure, generating. And you just have a line, a bottom 9. Everyone kind of looks the same. There's no difference maker in there who's going to go out and make a play. Any chances being generated are from that top line. And, they've been one of the better lines in the league, but it's tough to go far in the playoffs or go far if you're a one-line team.
For sure. And that's absolutely what the Winnipeg Jets are right now, is a one-line hockey team. So you and Huss will get into it tomorrow and throughout the week, but we'll see what they end up doing for Wednesday's game against the Montreal Canadiens. Do they keep that top line intact? Do they bring in Elias Salamonson on the back end? Is Neil Pionk going to be ready to go by then? Do they bring Cole Koepke in? We'll see. Scott O'Neill, after the game, Remis did say that everything is kind of on the table in terms of lineup changes. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to monitor.
Yeah, Neil Pionk skated in a skated a non-contact jersey today. Like, we'll see if he's okay. They're traveling Tuesday, so we won't have any updates until Wednesday morning. But yes, he would be. He'd certainly be a big boost As the defense, he's a guy who can skate. And I mean, are they going to make? I see a lot of people online clamoring for like Brad Lambert or Chibrikov, like those guys. I don't think they've had great years in the AHL so far. And Chibrikov was great last year when he called up, but didn't make a difference this year. Neither did Lambert. So Cheveldayoff saying, "Come from within." We'll see what happens there. I don't know if you wanted to get to anything notable from the game. Logan Stanley trying to take matters into his own hands. What I thought initially was a hit to the head of Perfetti, but it looked like a clean check. But credit to Stan for standing up for his teammate. And you mentioned, I know you put out there Rasmus Dahlin with a very dirty low hit on Gabe Vilardi, who seemingly okay, but that was so far away from the puck. I don't think anyone saw it.
Yeah, I saw people have had an issue with the Jets not having a response there, but I honestly don't think anyone saw it. Like, it was so far behind the play. Dahlin just stops in front of Gabriel Vilardi and kind of hip checks him right in the knee. Vilardi goes down and starts holding his knee, and Remis, with his injury history, I'm sure a lot of Winnipeg Jets fans and myself watching the game included, were thinking, oh boy, this is not good. But then he was out there for the power play, which was a great sign, and played the rest of the game. So good to see that Gabriel Vilardi was still, good to go after that play. And I think the lack of a response there was why you maybe saw Logan Stanley quick to fire, if you will, when Cole Perfetti took that hit from Krebs, which upon replay review that Amazon Prime got a good shot of, was a clean hit, but Logan Stanley was ready to fight, stood up for his teammate, and there's a little bit of fight and passion and, we're not going to get pushed around, if you will, from Logan Stanley, which I think Jets fans want to see in a 5-1 loss like this. But again, nothing that Jets fans are really clamoring for by any means. Another notable thing, Remis, and Tyson Ruwicki and I talked about this on Friday when Dylan DeMello took an early penalty. But Dylan DeMello took another early penalty in this game, and it seems to be that this Jets team, early in the season, they were taking a lot of penalties, but they were killing them off, so it wasn't too big of an issue. Dylan DeMello takes the early penalty in this one, and the Jets get scored on. That's kind of an under-the-radar problem that has continued, and Dylan DeMello, to me, has kind of been the face of it because he had the 2 penalties early in Carolina, had the early penalty tonight. And when the Winnipeg Jets are starting behind 1-0 with a bottom 9 that can't score, these penalties continue to be magnified, Remis, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, Dylan DeMello's got 24 penalty minutes in 25 games. It's like about a minor every other game. DeMello, he's not racking up those penalty minutes with fights, Connor.
No,
but this would be on pace for far and away that career high penalty minutes if this continues. You could be 80, 81 penalty minutes. He had 38 last year, 36 the year before. His career high is 50 with the Jets in 22, 23. So Scott Arniel mentioning the other day that his Morrissey's partner wasn't ready to play, so he put Salamonson there. It's been a bit of a rough stretch here for Dylan DeMello, who has been very solid with Josh Morrissey. But while he did take the penalty, I think that pair was the best pair. Well, for shot
speaking, sure.
Yeah, I mean they do have Josh Morrissey on there, so that helps.
Yeah, that's the thing when watching this Jets team. Like Connor, Scheifele, Vilardi, and Morrissey will be out there as a 5-man unit with DeMello.
Looks great,
and it looks great. Looks great. Looks great in the offensive zone. They're creating. They're getting shots, and then the other. If those guys play combined, 20 minutes together, let's say at 5-on-5, the other 40 minutes of the hockey game are just the Jets getting killed off the rush and giving up too much defensively and all of those things. So here's how the standings shake out. Some of these teams are in action right now tonight, so this could change as well. But the Jets 13-12 now on the season, behind Edmonton, San Jose, Utah, Chicago, Seattle in the wild card race in the Western Conference. So Connor Hellebuyck's still probably 3 to 5 weeks-ish away. And he can't score goals. So the Jets, while the goaltending might be saved when Connor Hellebuyck comes back, they're going to need to find a way to play better in his absence for the next couple of weeks before he does return. from that knee surgery that he underwent. Remis, it's time to get to our first of two segments, and I think we're going to struggle finding someone for this first one.
The hardest working Jet.
It's the hardest working Jet of the game. We usually, give out the hard hat award after wins and after, close losses, and there's a lot of players to choose from. Tonight, not as much, at least in my opinion. Remis, do you have a hardest working Jet from tonight's game?
I could say Josh Morrissey maybe every game.
Sure.
I will point out, this was pretty hardworking. Alex Iafallo made a nice back check, third period. Luke Shen, everyone's squeezing the stick a little hard, trying to do a bit too much. Did a couple dekes at the blue line, gave the puck up, breakaway. Very nice back check from Iafallo. So I'll highlight that play in what was it, a 5-1 game. Is I don't know. I could say Morrissey. He got had the shot to set up their only goal.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where you're leaning for this one.
I don't know. I'm considering going Adam Lowry for the closed door meeting initiation. How about that?
Sure.
I'll go Adam Lowry. Not for, on ice play. I brought up the metrics earlier. They were outchanced 60-0 with him on the ice, but for initiating the players only meeting. How about that? Hardest working Jet. Adam Lowry.
You got to figure something out here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you say play better? This is
play
on
better.
us?
Yeah. Yeah. Play better. Simple as that. Well, we'll see if the Winnipeg Jets can do that on Wednesday. But first, we need to get to our standout stat of the game, Remis. And I mean, from this game, from the season, wherever you want to go with this one, what's your standout stat coming out of tonight's loss?
Yeah, I mean, I could, power play went 0 for 2.
Mm-hmm.
You're struggling here, Connor. It's not going well. But you think about secondary scoring and how it's gone, and we were at 25 game mark of the season, and you always comparing why did it go so well last year? What's not working this year? And the main theme is lack of secondary scoring. Well, I mean, they had one guy last year who was all the secondary scoring in the first 25 games last year. Nikolai Ehlers, he played in 24 of them, and he had 25 points. That's a point per game player.
Yep.
On your second line, and he was on the top power play. But I think it shows you, what maybe we undervalued, what they were really losing at the end of the season. And the three guys who've come in, Taves, Nyquist, Perfetti, they've combined for 19 points. And I think, replacing what Nikolai Ehlers brought, you're really seeing how difficult it was with the lack of secondary scoring, lack of production outside of the top line here. They've scored 10 goals in the last 5 games or so. And 5 of those were against Nashville in the one game. So it's been a struggle, Connor, and I think that really highlights it.
I think it does too. I think that's a great standout stat. I'll go one from the game and then one bigger picture. The bigger picture one, the Amazon broadcast actually mentioned that tonight's game was the Jets' 12th regulation loss of the season. Their 12th regulation loss last season came on January 4th against the Detroit Red Wings in game number 41. So the Jets at game 25 of this season have already matched, or it took them 41 games to do what they did in 25 this year, and that's lose 12 games in regulation. And Remis, there have been games this year where the Jets have lost by a goal, and we've looked back at that one and been like, man, if they could just get a loser point at least, because you see that so much around the league. I bring up the standings earlier. All the teams ahead of the Jets have 3 or more overtime losses already. The Jets are just losing in regulation and getting blown out by the Buffalo Sabres, and that's not earning them any loser points in the standings, which is really putting them behind. So that's my bigger picture standout stat. The one from tonight's game that I'm going to go with is the one I mentioned earlier. The Jets' 2 middle 6 centers, Adam Lowry and Jonathan Taves, with them on the ice tonight at 5-on-5 in their separate minutes. The Jets got outchanced 18-2 by the Buffalo Sabres. So the middle 6, just nothing going. Just no pulse really offensively from the middle six or really the bottom nine right now for the Winnipeg Jets. So that's my standout stat from tonight's game. And Remis, I know you and Huss will get into more of a bigger picture discussion tomorrow at 1:00 on WST Daily. But what will you be watching for on Wednesday when the Jets take on the Montreal Canadiens outside of the obvious? A response, a big time response, hopefully, from this 5-1 loss.
You're kind of hoping is Neil Pionk. Is he going to come back? Will he be making any lineup changes? And you mentioned the start, weren't ready to play on Friday in the loss. This game started about as bad as it could have. How are they going to start off? What kind of energy are they going to have at what should be a great crowd at the Bell Center in Montreal? So I think that's, are we going to see any changes here, in terms of the roster or in terms of the way that they play? Will we see some desperation here, or will you see what we've seen a lot of the year where a young, fast up-and-coming team outskates the Jets, who we've talked about are the oldest team in the league? So, and the slowest, Connor, as per NHL Edge data on high boosts per game.
Speed bursts. Speed
bursts per game of whatever mile an hour they use. So something to watch for. I'm very intrigued how it's going to go because, if you have another performance like that, Scott Arniel, he went to the Card on Friday, got kind of angry. This was not that. He was very subdued and very disappointed. Yeah, that's a good word. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what his body language and his tone was, more disappointment to me than it was anger after tonight's game. Friday was anger because they hung Thomas Milic out to dry in his debut, and I think he did not like that, as nobody would. But yeah, Wednesday, the Canadiens are, they made the playoffs last year, so they're probably more polished than the Buffalo Sabres, but they're absolutely another young, super talented, skilled team that is right there in the Eastern Conference looking to separate themselves in the playoff picture. So can the Jets, we talked on Sunday Live as well. There's a difference between, at least in my opinion, to skating fast and playing fast. And we'll see if the Jets make lineup changes and if that helps them skate faster. But playing faster is something the Winnipeg Jets lineup can do as currently constructed. They didn't skate fast or play fast in tonight's game against Buffalo. So can they get back to that? Looking for a big response after a captain-led players-only meeting after a 5-1 loss to the Buffalo Sabres. That's going to do it for us on the WST postgame reaction. I'm Connor Hrabchak. He's Michael Remis. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button down below. If you haven't left a comment already on the state of the Winnipeg Jets, maybe drop a comment on your thoughts on tonight's loss. And we'll talk to you Wednesday after the Jets take on the Canadiens. But first, tune in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily tomorrow, 1:00 for more reaction. We'll talk to you then. Thanks for watching.